So right now then you write predominantly for 4 or 5 magazine?
Yes. So that, I'm sure that umbrella company's Hilltop Media,
Sure,
Corpus Christi, and so I do write for the Bend occasionally, but most of the food writing I do right now is certainly 405, and then I'm also back to writing for the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Nice.
I covered food for them pre-pandemic, and they've asked me to come back and do some blog posts on food stuff, and I think I've done 3 or 4 so far this summer.
Yeah.
So that was always a good relationship too, and both of those entities allow you to sort of put the best face forward for Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Writing come to you from an early age, or is it something that had to come to you later on?
I taught writing at the college level, and it was miserable. Because I mean that also, I love kids, and I love the students, it was great. But writing is one of those things like singing, I guess, that you can either do it or you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get better, but I've always been able to do it. The whole thing, high school newspaper, all of that, comes fairly easily to me. And I as someone who's teaching students, they're not really great, like, with that idea. It's like, oh, cool. So we struggle with this and you don't. But that's what I've been doing. I think I published my first story in 1990.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's been
32 years.
Yeah.
I only know that because I was born in 1990.
Oh, congratulations.
That's the only reason that my math is good.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
It wasn't a food story, but yeah, that was first year was 1990.
Yeah. So going back then to kick it off, born and raised here?
No, my father was Army. So my mother came back to Oklahoma. There were 3 boys.
Okay.
Her family's, they're from here.
Yeah.
But she'd come back, have the children, to be around her family, and then meet my dad wherever he was stationed at the time, because he was career.
Yeah.
And so I lived in Oklahoma twice before I was 20.
So you got just a free way to travel the world.
I think my first 10 years of life were primarily Japan. We were in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And then a good chunk of Colorado and Texas.
I love Japan.
It was, it was a great place to be a kid too. It was weird because they sell fireworks year round, and I was a towhead at the time, so people would come up and rub my white hair, and it was just very, very strange experience. But it's a beautiful, fantastic, whimsical, amazing country. I want to go back. We're talking about going back to Tokyo next year on a trip, because it's a very unique thing.
It's so different.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's, you go to Europe or you go to somewhere in the US or Canada, whatever, Mexico, like it's similar. But going there, I mean, it is a different world, isn't it?
It felt as a kid like you're in a carnival constantly.
Yeah.
And I remember like it was the 60s, because I'm old, pre-old. But I remember getting robots with video monitors and that moved when I was like a kid, because Japan was so far ahead of the U.S. technologically at that time. And so as a kid there, you're like toy stores and, fireworks, and you get to get out of the pier every day in Tokyo and see the ocean. It was just a wonderful place to be a kid. Yeah.
One of the things when I was there, I realized that like nobody really eats dessert food, and the vending machines were like amazing.
Yeah. Even today, like the Sandoichi machines, like you go in there and like the Sandoichi guys were just in town for that pop-up. But that whole aesthetic comes from those vending machines of the sandwiches sliced in half, and then the beautiful sort of, they think in terms of how is this going to look when we slice it. Because it really is sort of an aesthetic, and it's beautiful. Yeah. And it's like if we saw it at 7-Eleven or whatever, it'd be like tuna salad sandwich. No, we're good. Thanks. Don't need that. But their vending machines are a way different experience.
Yeah. It's hard to explain, isn't it? But for people listening, Google it, because it's fascinating how kind of they do that. But so you grow up then with quite a broad sense of the world then.
Yes.
Which is
and
amazing.
I joined the military at 17. I turned 18 in basic training, and so I was immediately, that's how I ended up in the UK.
Yeah.
I was there for a year and a half as well. And so I do think being a military kid is a liability and an asset. I mean, it's just you're moving every 6 months, 10 months, 12, 2 years, whatever. But you're also meeting new people, experiencing new things, tasting new stuff. That's one of my struggles with people when I write about food is if you're not an adventurous eater, I mean, I don't know how to deal with people like that. I have friends who are like, I got my chicken nuggets, I'm good. And it's like, okay, I'm so sad for you. And it's whatever. If that's their thing, that's fine. But man, for me, like I still, when I smell those little soy crackers that you associate with Japanese food where they have the little seaweed wrapped around them, that smell just sends me right back to Tokyo, where we're at the pier and we're looking out on the ocean and the water's super green and there's starfish everywhere. And that fish market smell is still a very pleasant memory for me.
Yeah. That's the great thing about food, isn't it? Like food and travel. You know, it takes you back to a time when you were a kid, or you were this or you were that. Yeah. And it's like music as well. Music does the same thing.
It's almost always good memories associated with the food. Yes. Almost always. But yes. Yeah, there's some bad food. There's some bad food memories.
Well, if you eat food long enough, right, for as much as you do, right?
I mentally clock my worst meal of the year, and I never write about it. Obviously, it would be a mean spirited thing to do.
It's in a burn book
but I know what it is, and if someone asked me, I would probably tell them. But yeah, mostly those are pleasant memories.
Yeah,
to a great degree.